Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, SBC 205, whatever time you're consuming this little artifact of educational media. It is once again myself, Vic McInnes, your public speaking instructor, coming to you live on tape from my COVID 19 compound here in the greater Grovetown, Georgia metro area, the Aiken Tech Outpost here in Columbia County, Georgia. Today's lecture is brought to you by Shirts with Collars. You know what's been lonely in my closet for the last 4 months? Shirts with collars. Okay, no slides today. You're just going to get me. I've got a couple of things I want to go over, and then I want to talk about the mechanics of how we're going to be doing our informative speeches and what you need to do to make sure you get all your stuff turned in on time so you get a good grade on this speech. Okay, we're going to cover two things today. We're going to cover methods of presentation, and then we're going to talk a little bit about informative speaking. Now, just because there's no slides does not mean this stuff isn't important. You are going to see this stuff on the final. I guarantee you that there will be questions coming out of what I talk about today. Okay? All right, so let's talk about methods of presentation, how you give your speech, sort of the mechanics of it. And there are 4 ways to present a speech. There are 4 methods of presentation. Reading a manuscript, speaking from memory, impromptu speaking, and then extemporaneous speaking. We're going to take them in that order. First of all, let's talk about reading from a manuscript, and that's what some of you guys have already done. You did a pretty good job of it without a whole lot of lecturing on it. That's great. The thing about reading from a manuscript that you need to be focused on is, even though your speech is written out word for word for you, okay, every word is written out. Remember dialogic theory. Remember that you're still supposed to be having a conversation with your audience. All right, so even though you have the page in front of you, you can't. Can you see the page? Yeah, okay, it made it. You can't just keep staring at the page. Your tone still needs to be conversational. So while it seems relatively easy for you to type out your speech and slap it onto a couple of pieces of paper and read it, a lot of times what we do is we wind up just writing a term paper, and we get up there and we have multiple dependent clauses, we have these run-on sentences, and it's not very conversational. It is a lot harder to give a manuscript a conversational tone than you would initially think. It does take a lot of practice. Reading from a manuscript is very important when you want to get everything right. Okay? If for legal reasons you need to make sure you hit every block, okay, and you say everything in the right order, using the exact words, reading a manuscript is appropriate. It's appropriate if you're not familiar with the material and you want to make sure you get it right. All right? It allows for very specific language. If you go back and you watch, and I don't know if we'll get to it in class this time or not, but if you go back and you watch Franklin Delano Roosevelt's request for a declaration of war speech, he is very specific in making sure that he justifies a legal declaration of war. And so that was very important. It works very well if you have a hard stop time. A lot of people, some people that talk are like me, and I've talked to you about people like this, where they'll sort of wander off the trajectory and they'll start bringing in stuff that they hadn't really planned on, and they'll go way over time. Okay? A couple of things specifically about reading from a manuscript. Practice, practice, practice. Because if you're just staring at the page, you will lose your audience. Okay? You have to be familiar enough with the material so that you can look down and you can look up. Second thing, don't hang on to the podium. You know, this is one of the things where I really miss doing this online, because I can't send each of you a podium or a lectern. But a lot of times people will just latch onto that and they will never release it. You're still expected to gesture. You're still expected to make eye contact. You're still expected to be animated. You have to do all of those things. So please remember that the nonverbals when you're reading a manuscript should be exactly the same. Okay? And then finally, try not to sound like you're reading a script. All right? Again, try to make it conversational. I have done a lot of manuscript readings and public speeches before. One of my jobs, multiple times during my career with the Department of Defense, I was what was known as the command briefer. I would be the guy when we had dignitaries, visitors, congressmen, cabinet members come through. I would be the guy that would give the brief. And even though they trusted me, they didn't want me winging it. So and a lot of times it was stuff I didn't understand because literally I was giving briefs on or talks on things like orbital mechanics, and I was talking about radio wave propagation, things I might not have been the most familiar with and might not have necessarily been an expert on. But these guys would write these briefs for me, and I would tell them, okay, I will do this brief, but you have to have everything to me 24 hours in advance at a minimum with no edits after that point. Because I did not want to get up there. I saw a newscaster today that was reading a thing that referred to the carotid artery is the carotid artery. I wanted to make sure that I was comfortable with the language and I didn't get hung up on words, that I had that fluency for something somebody else had written. And then a lot of times what they would do, they would bring in the text, and for an hour we would sit there and go over it, and I would say, that's not going to work well verbally. It works well on the page, but verbally, non-verbally is going to be very difficult for me to say. So a manuscript, number one, is not just taking an article and reading it. You have to write it in a conversational tone. You have to deliver it in a conversational tone, and you have to practice a lot, okay? It seems like, yeah, just hand me the script, I'll read it. It's not that easy for 99% of the people. Okay, so the first method of presentation, reading from a manuscript. Second, memorization. I cannot imagine an instance where a long speech needs to be done from memory. That being said, I have seen people do it, and sometimes it can be very effective because no notes allows for you to focus on the audience, okay? No notes allows you to spend more time making eye contact, gesturing. You're not encumbered by any notes. But here's the problem. People don't remember 4,000 words. What people remember is chunks, okay? And they break that 4,000 words down into 10 chunks, into 20 chunks. Smaller chunks that they remember as a group. And then they remember the order of the chunks, and they know that one chunk leads into another chunk. But the problem is, if you get into the middle of one of those blocks, and a car outside backfires, something happens to distract you that fast, you can't restart at the middle of that chunk where you left. The flag post you have for your memory is back at the beginning of that chunk. So I have seen so many people, when they're doing a speech, they're going like, and then the most important thing to remember about the fish population at Clark Hill Reservoir is, and then something distracts them. And they're like, the most important thing to remember about the fish population at Clark Hill Reservoir is that and it is clearly obvious you have it memorized, that cause them to doubt your level of expertise, cause them to doubt your credibility, and it will look bad, okay? So, I don't ever think there's a reason for totally memorizing a speech. And certainly if you memorize the speech in this class, that's going to be a problem, okay? So we have reading from a manuscript, we have speaking from memory, and then we have impromptu speaking. Now, an impromptu speech is a speech where you don't get a whole lot of, if any, preparation time. A lot of times this will happen when your boss are going like, hey, Bob, you just came back from that nuclear safety training course. Why don't you tell everybody what you learned? Okay, and now you're on the hook for talking for X number of minutes about a 6-week training course you took. Okay, a lot of people will say because it's impromptu, people's expectations of you are lower, and that is absolutely not true. People expect you to be awesome. Okay, and if you are awesome, it brings more credit to you and builds your credibility more than if you had time to prepare. So, organization of the speech is still going to be important, okay? You're going to want to have an introduction. You're going to want to have a couple of main points. You're going to want to conclude. But here's how you do it, okay? First of all, number one, all you need for the introduction is maybe a statement of purpose, maybe a preview of some main points, okay? But stall. Give yourself 15 seconds to think about it. If the boss goes, hey, Bob, you want to tell us about that class? And you sit there and go, sure, I'd love to. Don't start speaking from where you're sitting. You get up, you walk to the front, you make a joke, take a little shot at the boss or a little self-deprecating humor. I want to thank Mr. Smithers for bringing me up here with absolutely no notice. And then there'll be a little, okay, you bought yourself a good 30 seconds. Yeah, I'd love to talk about the class I took. I think it was very valuable. I think it was very helpful and will be to all of us. The class, as you guys know, were the new nuclear safety regulations that have been put out by the Department of Energy. There are basically 4 types of new regulations, and we're going to go through all. I'll give you a quick summary on all of them. Okay, if you can pull that off quickly and on the fly, it shows obviously that you're very familiar with the material. Okay, it shows a clear command of the subject. Try to conclude and try to have a conclusion and an introduction, because if you can be that organized on the fly like that, it's very impressive. The biggest time you're going to deal with with impromptu speaking is a job interview. Okay, so here's what happens during a job interview. When I've done job interviews, I've turned people down for this, and I've said we don't want to hire them. Okay, a lot of people think when they first get the question they have to start talking immediately. They'll go, how are you employing? Technology is driving the workplace today. What do you think the best workplace technologies are that have sped up production and made our work more valuable? And here's the first thing that happens. Well, I think email is great. I love email. Email is how I talk. Well, okay, Zoom. I like Zoom. What text messaging? Text messaging is definitely my answer. Okay, and they just start running off at the mouth with no plan. If you're in a job interview, here's a tip. Here's a hack. Always repeat the question. Okay. So what do you think? And this is coming actually from my job interview that got me this job at Aiken Technical College. I was asked, and this is the best I can remember the question. Technology is impacting everything about teaching. What one tool has technology given you that makes you a better instructor? And I just sat there and went, wow, that's a good question. What technology do I employ now that I didn't employ when I first started teaching public speaking? I started teaching public speaking back in 1986. When we had no technology, we thought note cards were cutting edge. If I wanted to show a tape, and then that's when actually I got my answer. Okay? If I wanted to show a tape, bam, that's what I'm going to talk about. If I wanted to show a tape, I had to go to the library and sign out one of those big, huge 88-pound on a cart with a big TV set videotape players and roll it into the classroom. Sometimes I would get somebody, the video center would bring them over, but most of the time I had to wheel it around Haley Center at Auburn University. Now, if I want to show a videotape, I go in and log in, and I can get any speaker in recorded history up on the front of the class in less than 3 minutes. So the short answer is, although there's a whole lot of other ways that I could talk about, the short answer is the most impactful has been YouTube. Okay. When I got the job and I was brought in, people were talking that we're in the interview. We're talking about that answer. Okay. In the first minute and a half of that was just me stalling. Okay. Sounded fluent, sounded eloquent, sounded like I had a plan, but I was really just rolling around trying to figure out where I was going to go with it until I said, if I wanted to show a videotape, YouTube, here's my answer. Here we go. Okay. So reading from a manuscript, speaking from memory, impromptu speaking. Here's the one you have to listen to. Extemporaneous speaking. Extemporaneous speaking. Here, let me spell it out for you, because this is going to be incredibly important to you. Extemporaneous. I actually got it to fit on the page the first time. Extemporaneous. Extemporaneous speaking. Okay. Extemporaneous speaking means that you are speaking with a plan, but without a manuscript. Okay? It means that when you get up there and you have your note cards, all right, Your note cards, because you're going to be limited to 2, no bigger than 4 by 6, you are not going to be able to write all your speech out on your 2 note cards. Get over that idea. Your note cards are going to give you memory posts to go in and show you what's next and to keep you focused on the topic. Okay? But a lot of people make the mistake of thinking, well, because I'm not writing it out and because I don't have to practice. Extemporaneous speaking actually requires more practice than reading from a manuscript or speaking from memory. Okay? I know that's hard to believe, but if you want to do it well and seem fluent, you have to focus and do more practice. Okay? You have to develop your ideas, your topics, your evidence, everything. Organization has to be done in advance. You are not doing it on the fly. You just don't have it written out word for word. You leave the exact words you will use and the tone of your delivery for the time itself, for the event itself. It does allow for flexibility in adapting to the audience. Oh, that coffee is not hot. Ugh. Okay? If you're reading a manuscript and you look out there and you see a large part of the audience is looking at you going, what? What? Okay? Or if you're speaking from memory and you get that look, what are your options? Go back and reread something they didn't understand the first time? You're basically done. You can't recover from that if you're reading from a manuscript or speaking from memory. But if you're speaking extemporaneously and you've got the time and the environment is appropriate, you can go ahead. Hold on a second. Clearly, some of us are not hanging on to this and some of us are not getting what I'm talking about here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to backtrack and I'm going to go over some things again. And I'll explain it a little bit slower to make sure that everybody picks it up this time. Speaking extemporaneously, you can do that. If you look out in the audience and people are going like, okay, yeah, trying to get you to hurry up, you can hurry up. If you're reading a manuscript or if you're speaking from memory, you can't do that. Okay? The problem with it is the disadvantages are language is less precise and you have trouble observing time limits. Okay? That's why I give you on a 4 to 6 minute speech, that's a 30% time window. Okay? All right. You will be doing your speeches extemporaneously. I do not want to see anybody reading their speech. That means you have to use note cards. All right? Period, close quotes, into sentence. Okay? Just be aware of that. All right. So those are our 4 methods of presentation: reading from a manuscript, speaking from memory, impromptu speaking, and extemporaneous speaking. Okay? So the next topic we're going to go into is speaking to inform. Okay? Harry Potter. Okay. Informative speaking is fairly simple. It's real straightforward. There's not a whole lot, you can structure it. We went over last Friday how to structure your ideas and how to put them in order. Okay? An informative speech has one purpose, and it's to inform people of something. It's to convey knowledge. That's really that simple. Okay? That being said, in the real world, I would advise you don't be afraid to engage controversial topics, but it takes a lot of practice to really wade into something controversial, to be strictly informative without inflaming the environment. Okay? That takes a lot of practice. I've been doing this forever. I've literally been doing this for over 40 years, and I'm still very careful and very nervous when I walk into that. Okay? We need people to give informative speeches, not opinion pieces, just straight up information. We need to be able to rely on people that will give us information, and we need to be able to accept that information in order to be informed citizens within our democracy. Okay? We can be informative on the most controversial of subjects, but we won't be doing that in this class because of that doesn't meet our instructional goal. My job is not to teach you how to talk on a controversial subject. My purpose is to teach you the mechanics of good public speaking and being critical of good public speakers. and getting involved in controversial topics is just not going to lend itself to that. Okay? Couple of things you need to know about informative speaking is, number one, always adjust your content for the audience. I always talk about, hypothetically, this is fictional. They're going to build a new wing onto the Aiken Regional Medical Center. So you're in charge of that project. You're in charge of building community support and getting funding for it. You're going to be given three speeches. First speech is going to be to the Aiken County Chamber of Commerce. You want their support for it. What are you going to talk to the Aiken County Chamber of Commerce, business people from Aiken County? What are you going to talk about? Money in the economy, okay? If we expand our hospital and make Aiken Regional Hospital a more viable medical center, then we will draw more businesses into Aiken County. That's what the Chamber of Commerce works to help. Second audience, bankers in New York, okay? What are bankers in New York? Do they care about the economics of Aiken County? Only peripherally. Do they care about bringing more jobs into Aiken County? No, not really. They could care less. What they care about is how you're going to pay this thing off. What's your business model? What's your money flow? Same topic, why you should support. Same general topic, why you should support an expansion of the Aiken Regional Medical Center, but not a completely different specific topic. Okay, if you go back to that lecture. Third thing, nurses. The third group you're going to talk to is nursing students at Aiken Technical College. What are you going to talk to them about? Jobs, jobs, and jobs. If this gets built, every one of you is going to have a job waiting for you when you graduate. Okay? It's that simple. So you want to adjust your content to your audience. When giving an informative speech, avoid jargon. Two groups of people that are the worst in the world about this. Number one is the military. Okay, I was giving a talk one time, and I was briefing some people on how we were going to do something. And I said, we're going to take cars and we're going to go over there. And somebody said, what does CARS stand for? And I went, it's an automobile. Because they were so used to hearing jargon. Military people have their own jargon. They don't kill people. They neutralize an asset in the battle space. They don't bomb things. They deliver munitions. You don't kill innocent civilians. You have collateral damage. All that stuff. That's just the military. It happens. Second, and the ones you guys have got to be worried about the most, is the nursing students out there. The medical field is the worst in the world. That I remember when we're in class in the before times, I would have everybody get up and introduce another classmate. Turns out that I do it so it's fairly random, but two people wound up, they didn't really know each other, but they both worked. I think in like the NICU at GMC. Oh, excuse me, Augusta University Medical Center. Okay. And they got up there and they were talking about, we work in the NICU, and they were talking about, we do these PMCs and these, a GMC, and we do all it. And I'm like sitting there at the end of the speech, and this went on for about 5 minutes. They introduced each other. And at the end of the speech, I just sort of stopped them. I said, hey, that was a great speech. What the hell were you talking about? And they looked at me like, I don't know what a NICU is. I don't know what, And I go in and I ask people all the time on speeches. I write down, and people get really upset with me. And if I wrote, I write down like something that I would assume everyone would know, the SEC, Southeastern Conference. I had somebody use SEC and ACC in a speech, and I got up and he came up afterwards and said, everybody knows. I said, don't use jargon, SEC, ACC. And I said, okay, raise your hand if you know what the SEC is. And in South Carolina, only about 5 people out of 25 raised their hands. I said, what about the ACC? And it's not just that they didn't know it. When I said it, what it stood for, they went, oh yeah. But out of context, that jargon sort of threw them off. So, 1, adjust your content. Avoid jargon. Limit the information you have presented. You can't tell us everything about everything. You can't tell us really everything about anything. So work on previous knowledge they may have. Use information that is memorable. Make everything relevant, and be personal. Apply it to people in the room. You're going to get a lecture tomorrow or Wednesday about using evidence, okay? And I've got some more details on that, okay? All right. That's information speaking. Now, let me go over what you're going to have to do in the next 7 days. Okay. So Friday. Suddenly I got fuzzy. Okay. Friday, by 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Or did I say by noon? Let's go with by noon. Okay. Friday by noon, you have to email me a draft outline. Now, when I say email me a draft outline, let me put a line under this. Do not send me a file. Copy and paste your outline into the text of an email. Okay? Do not send me a Word file. Do not send me a PDF. I am not opening any files. Even worse, do not send me a link to Google Docs. Okay? Because it is very easy to, I am working, if I was back in campus, I might take the time. Well, actually, I wouldn't, because opening a Google Docs file on campus can take up to 8 minutes. But I am not downloading. This is my personal computer here that I'm working on. I am not downloading files to my computer. And if I get a file, I'm not opening it. Okay? So I want you to take your outline and copy and paste it into an email by Friday at noon and send it to me. By Saturday morning, I will give you feedback on your outline. Okay? That is not the graded outline. That is not the outline you're going to be graded on. I want to make sure everybody understand that. That's a draft. But what I expect to see, and I need you to listen to me because so many people lose points on this. Okay? I need to see Roman numeral 1, introduction. 1A, attention device. Tell a joke, whatever. Okay? B, statement of purpose. And you can even write out your statement of purpose. C, credentials. I have been researching this. D, preview of main points. D1, main point 1. D2, main point 2. D3, main point 3. Okay? Roman numeral 2, main point number 1. And so on all the way down. I need it. If you just throw things, remember, the purpose of doing an outline is so that you can visualize your speech. And if you send me something that's just a bunch of random lines with no indentations and no structure, okay, you're going to get feedback that this is not an outline. It's just random, words. And when it comes down to grading that 20 points on Tuesday morning, you will lose some of those points. Okay? So you're going to want to do an outline in the format that I've shown you. Now, when we get done today, immediately after this, I'm going to post a link to a demonstration informative speech that I gave, okay? And I will post my outline and my note cards so that you can see what a good set of note cards look like. You should strive to make your outline look like mine, okay? Now, a lot of people say, well, when I copy and pasted it in the email, it didn't work. Within reason, I will buy that, but you know what? You can go back and redo it and then do the indentations and everything in the email. And then if it doesn't come through well because I'm using Outlook on the web, that's fine. Okay? I understand. All right? But the key thing up to this point is do not send me a file. Do not send me a link to a Google Docs or any other document server. Copy and paste your outline into an email and email it to me. Okay? Subject, your name, and outline. That's all you need. I will get your outline. I will hit reply. I will give you some feedback. If it's a good job, I'll say good job. If I don't like the structure, if the structure doesn't seem to make sense, you'll get that back from me fairly quickly. Okay. Tuesday morning by 8 a.m. Okay. You need to revise your outline. And folks, do me a favor. Okay, usually last time I had 112 students when I started this semester in public speaking. I know when you don't make mistakes, when you don't make changes. If I send you back feedback, if I take the time to tell you what's wrong with your outline and you don't fix it, you're going to lose points. And now when I've only got like 50 students, you guys are going to stick out like sore thumbs. If I give you feedback and if I give you input on your outline and tell you to fix something and it's not fixed, it's going to, don't be surprised when it costs you points. Okay. Tuesday morning, 8 o'clock. And if you put it on at 8:05, I'm not grading it. Okay? By Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, I need up at the top the link to your YouTube speech. And then I again need you to copy and paste your outline. I'm going to say this very clearly. If you do not include your outline, I am not grading your speech. Okay? I asked you to do two things last time. Give me a link and the name of the person you were introducing, and half of you didn't do that. If you don't put your outline in the discussion board right below the link to your speech, I'm not grading the speech. Okay? All right. So that's if you do the corrections I give you from Friday on the outline by Tuesday, you should get 20 out of 20 for your outline. How do you get 75 out of 75 for your speech? We'll go over the rubric later on in the week, but I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to say it over and over and over again. Plant your feet shoulder width apart, evenly in line with the camera you're looking at. Okay? Bend your knees slightly, stand up straight, make eye contact with the camera, and get your cameras off the floor. Find something for them to sit on, a step ladder, a stack of boxes, something, because you can't make eye contact when you're staring at your feet. Okay? Make eye contact with the camera. Act like you're making eye contact with an audience. Keep your hands separate. Do not grip the cards with two hands. Do not interlace your fingers. Do not hook your thumb in your pocket or stick your hands behind your back. Have your notes on 2 4x6 note cards. If you have more than 2 4x6 note cards, I'm taking 10%, which is 7 points off your grade, period. Please understand that. You have your introduction. You give your attention device, which is not a question. I'll go over that again later. No questions as introduction device, as attention devices. You give your attention device. You give your statement of purpose. You give your credentials. You give your preview. Then you say, now for my first main point, you give us your first main point. Then you get to the end of that. You pause for a second and you say, and my second main point, you give us your second main point. You get to your third main point and you pause and you say, and for my last main point, if the third is your last, if you have 4, give the fourth one. If you have 2, introduce your second main point as the final one. You give your third main point. You pause. In wrapping up, or in conclusion, I spoke to you today, and you restate the purpose. Then you review your main points separately. Make sure they are 2 separate sentences. Do not run them together. Then you give us a closing statement. Then you pause and you go turn your camera off. You upload that to YouTube. You post the link. You put your outline and correct it for what I've given you the week before. You will get a 75 out of 75. I don't know how to make that any clearer. This course is not hard, okay? It's just exacting. That is what you need to do all the way through, okay? Short term, Friday by 8 o'clock in the morning. By noon. Friday noon, I need you to copy and paste your outline into an email and send it to me, okay? Tuesday at 8 o'clock, paste the link to your speech on YouTube in the top of a discussion board posting, and then below it, I want you to mark and move your outline. Okay? Deliver it the way I told you to. Use 2 note cards only. It'll be perfect. Okay? I really hate rateyourprofessor.com or whatever the name of that site is, but apparently my wife loves reading it, and whenever anybody posts anything new on there, she always brings it up to me. And she says, yeah, there's another student here that says if you just do what he tells you, you're going to get an A. Okay? I'm really trying to make this very simple. Okay? Because this is how we give good speeches. This is the structure that makes you, when you guys say, well, there's not a whole lot of personality involved in it. You can we'll do personality later. Okay? You can build personality while giving public speeches further down the line when you've got more practice. Right now, let's build the muscle memory so that you give good, solid speeches. Okay? All right. That's what I have for the day. You're going to be probably hit up with 2 more before the end. In addition, I'm going to show you an informative speech. That link is going to go up in a matter of a few seconds. Okay? I don't really have anything else. We're going to talk about evidence before the week's over with. And then we're going to sort of roll back on lectures. You'll only be getting like 1 a week, and then some weeks you'll just be allowed to focus on giving your speech. Because I try to really heavily front load the class so that you get everything you need before you get to that informative speech. Okay, that way you're fully prepared for it, and that way we can work on with the follow-on. With all the speeches from here on, we're going to be working on the same core skill sets. Okay? All right. So that's 35 minutes and 42 seconds up to this point. Okay? Email me if you have any questions whatsoever. If you're going to be late with any of those deadlines, you have got to contact me first, or it doesn't make any difference. I want to applaud the people who have come to me and said, hey, listen, here's the things that are going on with me right now. I'm going to be late with my work. And every single one of them so far has been given a thumbs up. Here's your new deadline. Okay? So if you're going to be late, let me know why, and if it's a valid excuse. If it's, I just got a lot of work to do this week. I'm really busy. I'm sorry. You've got a week to get this done. But if something unexpected happens over the weekend, email me and we'll get it sorted out. Okay? Start working on those speeches now. Don't put it off till Thursday night at midnight. Other than that, if you have a question, email me. Stay safe, stay well, and we will see you soon.